When you found Jody, did you know it was murder?
They saw my mom laying on the bed. She knew immediately seeing it that it was a crime.
She had been struck in the head and been suffocated as well.
Did they actually brag about the killing?
I was appalled. It was disgusting.
Hi, I'm Nancy O'Dell. Today's Crime Exposé takes us to Palo, Iowa. A wife and mother of a blended family was found dead in her own home. A last-minute camping trip set the stage for an intruder to strike her down. Police uncovered digital evidence that shocked even veteran investigators and nailed a killer. Palo, Iowa is a small farming community outside of Cedar Rapids. 58-year-old Jody Bevins, a registered nurse, had stayed home while the rest of the family went camping.
My mom was a nurse. She was a healer, was very dedicated to her job. She always put her patients first. That was why she was not there that first night, was she had to work. She was going to be coming Friday night to join us at the campground.
Strangely, Jody didn't show up for work that day and never arrived at the campsite. When Jody's family was unable to reach her, they returned home, worried what they might find.
There was a lot of concern. It was very out of her character, not showing up for work and not showing up for camping. We knew that there was something wrong. We had no idea what we were going to walk into, but we knew it wasn't going to be anything good at that point.
I had received a phone call from the sergeant who was on duty. He responded to a welfare check at a house out in the country. The people that had called in said the lady that lived there, Jody Bevins, was supposed to be at work and hadn't shown up.
I work for the state homicide unit. We were notified by the Benton County Sheriff's Office that there was a suspicious death at a little farmhouse.
My sister and my dad got to the house and the front door was locked, so they had to break in through a window. And that was when they saw my mom laying on the bed. My sister is a cop, so she knew immediately that it was foul play and pushed everybody out of the house so that it could be properly investigated.
The scene was a little unusual. Almost every member of the family was already there, waiting outside. It becomes a bit chaotic when all the family members are there.
Jody Bevins, a beloved wife and mother, was dead, the victim of a homicide. So how tough was it for you to respond to a potential homicide in your own community? Because I can't imagine that you would ever become immune to this.
I've responded to a handful of homicides. Being a small community, you don't get a lot of those. So there's always this sense of dread when you get that kind of a call. And going into the house and seeing her, there was definitely that sense of dread that, yeah, this was probably everything that you wish it wasn't.
There was an obvious bruise on the left side of her face, which I have often described as getting punched in the face or struck in the face with an object. You could see that the bruising and swelling had started. And then there were things that just appeared to be staged around her body.
Jody's left side of her face had what appeared to be an open wound where there had been bleeding.
So what tipped you off at the crime scene that everything wasn't as it appeared to be?
The way her phone and glasses were set up, you could tell kind of all that was just neatly placed for us to find.
Our whole entire world has just been flipped upside down. She was our rock. We didn't know what to do. We didn't believe it. Didn't want to believe it.
Police separately interviewed family members to reconstruct a timeline of Jody Bevins' last hours alive. At this point, they couldn't rule out anyone as a suspect.
It was scary. We had no idea what was going to happen from there after we were all getting questioned.
A couple of things you always look for is opportunity and motive in these types of cases. But when you assess the victim's husband in this case, he appeared to be somewhat with some physical issues where he may not have been able to commit this crime. But again, when you look at the circumstances, that he's someone you have to consider.
The possibilities are endless, so we have to tread carefully with family there. Any one of them could be a possibility, including anybody that lived in that house.
After searching the house, investigators saw no sign of a break-in or robbery. Other than the suspicion that the crime scene had been staged, there were no arrows pointing at anyone. The murder of Jody Bevins, a well-liked member of the community, made the investigators' job even harder. But then, some family members spoke the unthinkable.
From the time I stepped out of my car to the time I came into the house, there was lots of whispers in my ear that I need to be looking at Samantha Bevins, which would have been the victim's stepdaughter. She had just been kicked out of the house.
It was our understanding that she had a methamphetamine addiction. Jody was trying to get her cleaned up. We were hearing stories that in the past, Jody was starting to get scared of her because she was very volatile. There was a boyfriend that was a part of her life that had caused trouble with the family in the past.
When they were interviewing us, we all told them the same two names, individually and as a group. Samantha Bevins and Tekoa Talley. Samantha Bevins was my sister.
The information sent the investigation into overdrive. Police had identified two suspects, and they needed to speak with them.
She actually didn't even believe that Jody was dead, let alone had been murdered.
Iowa and Benton County homicide investigators learned from the victim's family that Jody Bevins' killer may have been her stepdaughter, Samantha. It was a shocking development that stunned the community.
Samantha was very distraught over some of the things that happened in her life, and she blamed Jody for all of it. Maybe most of Samantha's issues centered around her meth addiction.
Samantha was actually living there and had just recently gotten kicked out and had just recently lost her kids. And she blamed a lot of that on Jody. And there was already a threat that she was going to be going to the house.
Locating Samantha Bevins and her boyfriend was easier said than done. Police said the two suspects were on the run and chasing the next meth hit.
Their first reaction was, okay, we need to find these two and figure out if this is actually who did it.
Samantha's boyfriend was Tekoa Talley. He had just been released from jail a couple of days prior. The hard part with people like that, with Tekoa and Samantha and their lifestyle, was they were often homeless. They would often bounce between drug houses, that sort of thing.
You two were sisters in a blended family. So what might have led Samantha to do this?
Samantha and I were the closest in age. I was the youngest, and her and I were really close. I was always the one that would help her when everyone else was done. She was heavily addicted to meth. She would smoke marijuana and drink.
We tracked her down to a hotel at a casino, and myself, Inspector Villada, and another agent went to her door. And for quite a while, she would not let us inside the hotel room. She just stood with the door barely cracked open. She sounded very paranoid.
Investigators say they knew that Samantha was involved in Jody's murder and that somehow they had to work around her meth addiction to get her to talk.
We spent the next maybe half hour to 45 minutes trying to convince her that we were the police. In fact, she actually didn't even believe that Jody was dead, let alone had been murdered. She was very almost dismissive of having anything to do with it. Even though I truly believe she knew we were the police, I think she was just trying to buy time before she had a talk with us.
She was acting like an addict. She was very all over the place with her emotions, and she was acting like someone that wanted to talk about anything but Jody Bevins.
Samantha dodged, weaved, and gave up little about Jody's death, and police ended the interview. They continued their search for her boyfriend with plans to interview him and possibly make an arrest. Meanwhile, the autopsy report confirmed their suspicions about Jody's death.
According to the autopsy, she had been struck in the head and had actually been suffocated as well. So the autopsy was pretty revealing, but not necessarily all that surprising.
So at this point, the thing that's running through my mind is leading me to think that she was, if not absolutely involved, knew exactly what had happened.
So after that first interview with Samantha and her boyfriend, they take off. They're on the run.
Yeah, they actually started bouncing between hotels. You have to look at post-incident behavior. How do people act after the incident? And they certainly weren't staying in a location where they could be found. They were at each location for about a day.
It was 3 weeks that they were on the run, and they were just kind of watching them, letting the case kind of build.
With little physical evidence, there was nothing to charge the pair with, even though police believed Samantha and her boyfriend were the killers. Then, a police subpoena of Samantha's phone, which also tapped into her Snapchat account, blew the case wide open.
I was actually sitting at my kitchen table and I hit play on some random video, and this confession plays. And my wife is standing there kind of in shock, as am I, because she's like, "Is that someone confessing to murder that you're playing for me?"
Usually, it just doesn't come to you gift wrapped like that. It was a combination of horror and elation at the same time, because you've just gotten the information that you needed.
Finding the co-conspirators would prove more difficult than stumbling upon a confession from Samantha Bevins and Toccoa Talley.
My sister had just murdered my mom and bragged about it on social media.
Once Samantha Bevins and her boyfriend were identified as the primary suspects in the murder of Jody Bevins, police subpoenaed her phone records. Hidden in the digital space of Samantha's Snapchat account, they discovered a smoking gun.
Something on Snapchat called Snapchat Memories, where you actually can save your message forever. A couple days after the murder, Samantha and Toccoa decided to make a celebratory video, basically saying that they killed Jody Bevins, and they were actually pretty proud of themselves for doing it. And I'm like, holy cow, I can't believe it. I actually found a confession on a search warrant.
I killed her. I killed her myself.
And I knew that this was happening, so good job.
We killed her. We killed her. We thought about it, planned it out perfectly.
This was what we were looking for. This was the piece of evidence that was really going to bring it all home.
I can't even imagine. What was the family's reaction to the video that Samantha made? Because she seems gleeful, pretty proud of what she did.
The detectives showed us her Snapchat video, and I was appalled. It was disgusting. She was so proud of herself and what she had just done. We didn't know what to do. We didn't know how to process it. We didn't know what to think. My sister, my dad's daughter, had just murdered his wife, my mom, and bragged about it on social media about how proud she was about what she just did. It was traumatizing to see that video.
I don't know how you can watch that and say either one of them was being forced into making that. They both seemed relatively at ease and almost happy about it. So the disdain that Samantha showed for Jody in that video was quite honestly disgusting.
The video was the evidence police needed to charge the pair, but the killers were still on the loose, and police learned that they had made threats against other family members.
It was very difficult. We were on high alert, looking over our shoulders every single day. They had a list, and Jody just happened to be the first one. I was actually on the list as well, and my sister was supposed to move in with me that week that it happened.
There was now an even greater urgency to arrest the killers. Police eventually located Toccoa Talley, who surprisingly was already in custody elsewhere.
We ended up making contact with him at a jail because he had been arrested on a different charge for a different matter. So we sat down with him to try to talk to him, and he refused to tell us anything.
We weren't able to find Samantha until she landed at kind of like this weird halfway house. It's actually a very kind woman who kind of took in people that were drug addicts and tried to help them turn their life around.
When we showed up, we kind of showed her the video and we said, you need to talk to us. And that came to another surreal moment where Samantha asked if we could pray together. So I'm sitting next to this woman who has murdered Jody, and I'm thinking, I'm entering into the twilight zone here. She admitted a limited part in what had happened, and at that point, she was placed under arrest.
Detectives then discovered more incriminating evidence. Samantha had scribbled a prophetic note the day of Jody's murder, a new low for this wicked stepdaughter.
But Samantha had wrote a to-do list for the day of the murder, and the first thing to do that day was kill Jody.
Samantha Bevins and Toccoa Talley were both charged with first-degree murder. They faced a mountain of evidence, including the video confession, which Samantha posted.
Initially, Toccoa says nothing. When he gets to trial, of course, he blames it all on Samantha based on the Snapchat video, that sort of thing. She tried to blame Toccoa for everything that happened. It's kind of an easy play for both of them since they were both there. And it's easy to say, hey, this is what happened, but I didn't do it, they did it.
Samantha's trial was even worse. And she took the stand at her own trial, and we had to sit there and listen to that. Her defense was to try and say that he made her do it, the whole battered woman syndrome. She was innocent, and he basically forced her.
Pointing a finger at each other was Samantha and her boyfriend's only defense, but the jury saw through it.
She was a great mom. She was a great grandma. She did everything for everyone and just loved so fully.
Samantha Bevins was found guilty of killing her stepmother, Jody Bevins. Her boyfriend, Toccoa Talley, was also convicted of murder and received the same sentence, life without parole. Neither has ever accepted responsibility or expressed remorse for the heinous murder. And now, it's time for today's Safety Spotlight. When someone reveals their true nature, take it as a fact. Never underestimate or dismiss a threat. Consider its seriousness and act accordingly. Get law enforcement involved immediately and file a police report. Having police documentation and a paper trail can help deter further violence. If the threats continue or escalate, you could obtain a restraining order as suggested by a professional. Your safety and well-being are non-negotiable. And if you or someone you know is experiencing verbal or physical abuse, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is available 24/7, 365 days a year. Call 1-800-799-SAFE. I'm Nancy O'Dell. For everyone here at Crime Exposé, please join us next time and stay safe.
Melissa was just at home by herself. He forced himself into her home.
Her killer wrapped his hands around her throat and was squeezing her life out. The rumor on the street was that the boyfriend had committed the crime.
Prior to Melissa's death, they got involved in an argument.
One of the phone numbers in Melissa Lee's phone book was for something called the Nightline. She had met someone on the Nightline.
At this point, how could detectives crack the case?
They needed some sort of solid evidence that would link someone to the crime.
The last few moments of Melissa's life were violent and horrific.
You know there's a predator out there. How is he still walking the streets?
Now our goal is to find out absolutely everything that we can about this guy.
He said, I knew that's what this was about. He paused, he looked at the ceiling, and he said, I'm sorry.
I'm Nancy O'Dell. Today's Crime Exposé takes us to Bothell, Washington, a quiet suburb just northeast of Seattle. It was the last place anyone would have expected an 8th grader to be abducted from her own home. But that's exactly what happened to 15-year-old Melissa Lee. And when investigators uncovered the sinister details of the crime, it confirmed a dangerous predator was on the loose in their community. And until he was caught, no young woman would be safe. April 13th. It was gray and foggy outside when Sharon Lee placed a frantic call to police.
911, what is the emergency?
Sharon called 911 to report Melissa missing.
Sharon said at 2 a.m. she had returned home with her boyfriend, expecting to find her 15-year-old daughter Melissa sound asleep, but instead walked into a chaotic scene.
When they got home, they discovered that the front door to their Bothell home had been kicked in. The living room was in disarray. Furniture had been overturned, a drink had been spilled, and there was a pack of cigarettes left in the living room that didn't belong to anyone in the Lee family.
And did any other clues stand out to them?
They smelled a sharp chemical odor in the air.
Just a few hours before, at 9:30 p.m., Melissa had called her mother.
Melissa was just at home by herself, and she was asking her mom if her friend Krista could come spend the night.
But the sleepover never happened.
Yeah, her friend that was supposed to come over ended up babysitting late for a family, and so her friend just was not able to make it that night.
Officers asked Sharon for a description of what her daughter had been wearing.
We found out that she was last seen wearing a pair of pink shorts. She had a black San Jose Shark sweatshirt on.
The details of Melissa's disappearance were alarming.
It caused a lot of concern for law enforcement. So obviously we were working with potentially maybe someone who was maybe kidnapped.
Just hours later, the missing persons investigation ended in the worst way possible when 2 women walking over the Edgewater Creek Bridge made a horrific discovery.
After Melissa's mom filed the missing persons report in the morning of April 14th, later in the afternoon, there were 2 women that were walking across a bridge in Everett. The bridge is called the Edgewater Creek Bridge, and they had looked over the edge and observed what appeared to be a female's body on the ground below.
The victim's clothing confirmed the awful truth.
She was wearing pink-orange shorts and a black San Jose Sharks sweatshirt. The sweatshirt and the bra that the woman was wearing underneath had been pushed up over her breasts, so they were exposed. And it appeared as though she had fallen from the top of the bridge.
The medical examiner's report told a grisly story of the 15-year-old's last moments alive.
We learned that Melissa's cause and manner of death was strangulation.
At some point, her killer wrapped his hands around her throat and was squeezing, the very life out of her.
Blood was found on Melissa's shorts.
The blood stain was on the rear of the left pant leg of the shorts.
Some of the blood found on the shorts did belong to Melissa. Some of it belonged to an unknown male.
And there was more.
Her underwear was on backwards. That, taken together with the fact that her bra and sweatshirt had been pushed up over her breasts, suggested that there was a sexual element to her murder.
And was there biological evidence discovered?
Yes, there was male DNA eventually found in Melissa Lee's underwear and in some of the swabs that had been taken from her body at autopsy.
The toxicologist report provided even more disturbing clues.
With the toxicology screen that was done on Melissa's blood, common street drugs were absent, but they did discover that she had some ether in her system, which was kind of surprising.
How about how the crime unfolded? What did the evidence tell you about that?
He came to her house when she was alone. He forced himself into her home. He subdued her with the historical anesthesia ether. Something that's notable about his apartment is it was only 3.5 miles away from where her body was recovered. Our theory is that the defendant used carburetor cleaner or some other type of commercial solvent to subdue her, most likely by placing that chemical onto a rag and using it to, hold up against her face and nose and mouth, so she had to breathe it in. The last few moments of Melissa's life were violent and horrific.
Who would have had a motive? Who would have had the opportunity?
"15-year-old Melissa Lee had been abducted from her own home and strangled to death. For Melissa's little sister, who had been out of town that night, the pain was almost impossible to bear.
She was a very kind heart, loving. She just had a beautiful soul, beautiful heart. She was just a beautiful person all around. I looked up to her. I wanted to go everywhere with her. I wanted to do everything with her, but she was just somebody that I just wanted to be around 24/7.
The brutality of the crime hit her family hard.
When my grandpa told me, somebody had killed her, it didn't click. I guess it was more shock, just to think who could do that? Who would do that? Who would take her? And so it took a while for it to sink in. To be honest, I'm 42 years old and it still is hard to believe sometimes.
Investigators narrowed down the moment when the killer had struck.
We believe that the incident occurred between 11 p.m. and 2 in the morning.
And it had been a rage-fueled attack.
The last few moments of Melissa's life were violent and horrific. She was alone at the time, and we know that she put up an intense struggle.
Melissa's friends led detectives to zero in on a suspect.
The rumor on the street was that the boyfriend had committed the crime.
His name was TJ Peters. He and Melissa had just broken up days before her murder.
Records showed TJ had been on the phone with Melissa shortly before she was killed.
The night that she went missing, Melissa and TJ had been talking on the phone pretty frequently, and TJ seemed pretty annoyed that Melissa kept calling him.
As they dug deeper, even more red flags were raised.
Prior to Melissa's death, they got involved in an argument.
But Melissa's ex denied any involvement in the crime. Detectives asked him to take a polygraph.
The polygraph failed.
The evidence against him was stacking up.
The threats, the recent breakup, the failed polygraph is one of those things that made law enforcement really take a hard look at this kid.
Detectives looked closely into his whereabouts at the time of her abduction.
It turned out that TJ had an alibi for the night of April 13th.
And ultimately, his DNA did not match the evidence in the case.
They were able to say that TJ Peters was not the person who killed her.
So law enforcement pressed on and scoured through Melissa's room for clues.
One of the things that detectives did pretty early on in the investigation was take Melissa's calendar, her day planner, and her phone book from the Lee residence in order to go through her thoughts and maybe look for things that other people didn't know. They also took a number of writings from Melissa's room.
Law enforcement quickly learned Melissa had been using a social phone line called the Nightline.
Anytime the phone rang, we always knew it was for her.
Melissa had been talking to people on the Nightline. Nightline was a phone number that people could call into. It was kind of a connector line that would connect people who were currently on the phone with each other, who may be complete strangers with each other.
So would you say the Nightline phone was sort of like online dating?
I think it's fair to say it was an analog version of online dating or dating apps.
It is essentially think Tinder, but you use your phone and not a computer.
But detectives were unable to link anyone Melissa might have encountered to the crime.
It wasn't clear how many people in her phone book she had met on the Nightline.
The investigation was back to square one.
You know there's a predator out there. How is he still walking the streets?
At this point, how could detectives crack the case?
They needed some sort of solid evidence that would link someone to the crime. They need some sort of break.
The investigation into Melissa Lee's murder had hit a brick wall. But 27 years later, with cutting-edge advancements in DNA technology, authorities were convinced the unknown DNA profile left at the scene would be the key to unlocking the case.
Back in the end of 2018, we learned about genealogy, and so that profile was processed. The male DNA that was located on Melissa's shorts, that profile was uploaded into CODIS, which is a national database, back in 2001. And there was never a hit because that male's DNA was never in a system, so it tells me that he was never a convicted felon.
And through the painstaking efforts of forensic genealogists, they focused in on a name.
The likely source of the DNA found on Melissa Lee's body belonged to someone named Alan Edward Dean.
At the time of Melissa's murder, Dean would have been 35 years old.
Now our goal is to find out absolutely everything that we can about this guy. Does he have any history that would indicate this is something he might do? Is there anything that he has done previously that makes him look suspicious or makes us think that, yeah, we're on the right track here? Assuming he's the assailant, how did their paths cross? How does he come into Melissa Lee's life to the extent that he's able to take that life?
Notes in Melissa's day planner revealed the teen had met Alan Dean on the Nightline, but he had gone by a different name.
Yeah, there was a name and a phone number in the phone book that Melissa had written down that a detective called. And the name written down in the phone book for that phone number was Michael. The detective who called that phone number for Michael talked to a man and found out that that man's name wasn't Michael. The man's name was actually Alan Dean. But Alan Dean told investigators back in 1993 that he used Michael when he would go onto the Nightline and the chat line and when he would talk to people.
When investigators dug into Alan Dean's past, they discovered shortly before Melissa's murder, a young teenager in Arizona had accused him of a shockingly similar crime.
Alan Dean was a suspect in a sexual assault involving a 13-year-old girl, where he provided the 13-year-old girl alcohol and marijuana and was in bed with her. And she had passed out, woke up the next morning, and Alan Dean allegedly said, "I hope I didn't get you pregnant."
But he was never prosecuted for the crime. Armed with the evidence against him, detectives brought Alan Dean in for an interrogation. But he refused to talk.
Why don't I read the first one? You can tell me whether you understand that one. How about that? You have the right to remain silent. Do you understand that?
No.
Okay. What part of that do you not understand? I'd be happy to try and explain it to you.
I don't understand anything that you're saying.
Okay. Is it a language barrier or is there...
I decline any and all offers of contract and I don't concede to any presumptions. I comprehend we just trying to do your job, but I can't make any legal determinations on any of the questions that you're asking me.
Okay.
So what I'm getting from you is you don't want to answer any of our questions today.
I decline any and all offers of contract and I don't concede to any presumptions.
Well, we weren't able to confront him with the evidence because the interview didn't go down that path. When we entered the interview room, when we tried to talk to Mr. Dean, he would just keep saying the same phrase over and over again. So it became very apparent to us that he was invoking his right to remain silent and he wasn't going to answer our questions.
So what I'm getting at is no matter what we say or what we ask, you're going to respond with that same answer. Is that correct?
I comprehend you're just trying to do your job, but I can't make any legal determinations on any of the questions that you're asking me.
That's fine, sir.
I scooted up to the table and I said, okay, listen, you're under arrest for the kidnapping and murder of a 15-year-old girl in 1993.
I'm going to take that as you are refusing to cooperate with us and to answer our questions. You're under arrest for murder in the first degree and kidnapping in the first degree from a 1993 case.
But when detectives left the room, the cameras kept recording, and what Alan Dean said next was a bombshell.
Maybe that's what this was about. I'm sorry.
He said, I knew that's what this was about. He paused, he looked at the ceiling, and he said, I'm sorry.
When you heard him say, I'm sorry, what went through your mind?
I think we were all kind of shocked when we saw that. I was like, holy Toledo, he just confessed to his murder.
That was his confession.
He always knew that day would come. He knew that we had caught him.
It had been a long and hard road to find the predator who had robbed Melissa Lee of her future.
For a middle-aged man to be able to sexually assault and murder a 15-year-old girl is someone who is evil. There's no other way to put it.
But nothing will ever replace the joy that Melissa brought to everyone who knew her.
I miss her smile. I don't even remember her voice. I don't get to hear her laugh, so it's hard. And I think that's the hardest part for families is trying to get over the pain of losing somebody like that.
At the end of his trial, a jury found Alan Dean guilty of first-degree murder. The 62-year-old was sentenced to 26 years behind bars. And now, it's time for today's Safety Spotlight. While this case began on a chat line, which is similar to online dating, the principles of safety remain the same. Children between the ages of 12 and 15 are especially at risk for manipulation, so it is critical for parents to talk to their children about online predators. Parents should discuss risky behavior and examples of healthy and unhealthy relationships, so your child can be on the lookout for red flags. Talk to your children about the dangers of sending and receiving sexual messages and photos. Additionally, parents may want to consider firewalls and surveillance software to monitor their child's online activities and make sure their location setting is off. Visit staysafeonline.org for resources to help teach online safety to kids and adults. Or you can call 1-800-843-5678 to report crimes against children. I'm Nancy O'Dell. For all of us here at Crime Exposé, please join us next time and stay safe.